Welcome to the D.I.Y. Syndicate podcast, reaching out to its listeners from North Coast Studios in Fremont, Ohio, where all things DIY come to the forefront of an ever-changing entertainment industry. Listeners can reach out to the podcast with questions via facebook.com/DIY Syndicate. Thanks for listening, and here are your hosts, Ian Reiter and Alan Fisher.
What's up, everybody? This is the D.I.Y. Syndicate podcast, recorded live out here at beautiful Fremont, Ohio at North Coast Studios. I'm your host, Ian, and
I'm Al Fisher.
We are just going to kind of kick things off here with just sort of a introduction episode here and just kind of, establishing a mission statement and sort of where we're going to go with this and sort of the origins of why this is even a thing. Mainly, this started a couple weeks back with the idea of, hanging out at the studio. We tend to agree a lot on how things were done back then, so to speak, in the good old days of the music scene, or even just in art in general.
And how it was all done, DIY. You basically did it yourself. So hence the reason the name DIY Syndicate.
Yeah, and what makes this podcast, I feel, for those who obviously don't know, we have sort of a yin and yang effect going on here in the studio. Myself, I'm from the kind of newer scene of music, and Alan is from the 80s and early 90s scene over in the East Coast of Boston.
Are you saying I'm old?
You ain't young. But I mean, why I found it was really cool and very special to me in my relationship with you is though we come from two different eras, we tend to agree on I would say a solid 98% of where we need to be in the future.
Minus, our Kiss Slipknot deal,
Yeah,
that's the only place. That's the 2% right there that we don't see eye to eye on. So
I came up in the scene where it was sort of the butt end of what was, the atypical DIY 90s punk scene. I think what makes it, especially with the boom of social media, is specifically my age group, we have this gap now where we can remember pretty vividly the time of how things were, but everything has changed so fast within, the past 15 to 20 years that now we're sort of all desensitized, and I feel that there's a lot of, despondence and separation in what was previously a very staunch and strong music community, even in just the boonies of Northwest Ohio that we had out here. And sort of the main mission statement we have at North Coast Studios in general, but also for this podcast, is just giving everybody in the area and also just at large the opportunity
to get involved.
Yeah, to get involved and to get back to how things were, but not in a sort of like sad, drony,
reminiscent way.
Yeah, nostalgic thing, but more so in a let's band together, but make it new.
The key piece to this is, we're doing this as the podcast as a platform to reach people, but those same people that are listening, you, hopefully, you're going to reach back and, touch base with us. If you're a musician or a band, send us information. Send us your CDs if you even press them. That's a later topic there. Things like that. I mean, if you're reaching out to us, send us a sticker. We got a huge sticker door here that, is going to end up on, our Facebook page. Definitely, you can find us on Facebook. It's the DIY Syndicate. If you're a band, there's another piece of this pie that we've been talking about, which is, we're going to start doing live kind of showcases for bands. Bands are going to come in. We're going to get to record them live, do an interview with them. And we got some great guys from Toledo coming in. Who's that going to be, Ian?
I got a couple friends in two different bands who are completely down for hopping in here and slamming some jammies. We got Ghost Native and Northern Shores.
Oh, that's awesome.
Both interested in wanting to come out here and showing the world their wares, but also they're super cool guys, and absolutely gut-wrenchingly hilarious to be in a room with. And so it's always a good time. But yeah, if you're in a band or you have some form of platform or something you want to have, showcased out here at the studio, just reach out to the podcast, and we're going to do our very best to be on point and reply as soon as possible and really schedule these things out because we want to keep kind of this train chugging here.
Yep.
And we know we kind of want to consistently have bands in and out of here. And
we're going to try and do it monthly, maybe every 6 to 8 weeks, but to start. But we're going to, as this picks up, I mean, we already have a number of bands interested, as well as this isn't just going to be a local thing. I mean, national bands on tour, they're coming through, and you're hearing this podcast.
Yeah, you
get in touch with us.
You got a day off. You're bored.
Yep.
You don't want to hang out in a Walmart parking lot.
Yep. Bands out there, if you got shows, let us know. We'll plug them. We'll put them on the podcast. If it's enough time before the podcast, we're going to try and do this a couple of times a month. We'd love to get it on there. Some of the other things that we get, we're actually going to be playing live music on here. So actually, why don't we take a break real quick and you can listen to some Black Flag.
You're one of them, you say that you're that
And we're back.
That was wonderful. Time travel is
My
amazing.
War. Some poignant words there.
Oh,
and after that
boy.
was Sunny Day Real Estate.
Which was my recommendation. Now, what was cool about us sort of just kind of jamming out some music here is we actually recorded it on a live turntable vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Records, they
The
still exist.
classics. I do not want to sound corny, but taking back the scene, and I'm not just saying the Fremont, Ohio scene, the Toledo scene, but just
All of them.
music in general, art in general, and that's why we're gonna, as far as guests go, on future episodes, we're gonna be going back and forth on old school, newer school, but also not just musicians, but also photographers, digital art people, painters, authors,
Recording people.
engineers. Oh, good Lord.
Yep.
But both older and newer. And so, kind of give you guys a little bit of a flavor, a little test here of some of the people we got kind of coming down the pike here. Like,
I've pulled in a lot of some of the people from the old Boston hardcore scene, from John Stocking, who's John Socks. He sang for the FUs. Keith Bennett from Wrecking Crew. He's in a band called Panzer Bastard now. Jonah Jenkins from Only Live a Witness.
Dave Smalley.
Yep, from All. Dag Nasty, DYS.
Yeah, and
Down by Law.
Yeah, and that's just some of the few of the older school, and then on my end, it was sort of my homework to kind of pull some of the more newer school people, like we have Elliot from Bless the Fall that's going to be on here pretty soon, or Aaron Lunsford, who you may know as the drummer for As Cities Burn, but he's also now a published and dignified author. And he's actually doing some real cool stuff with that. And then kind of even going outside of music. I have a photographer friend out in Seattle named Dave Shepard who grew up in the same scene as I did, but he sort of has a different take because he was going to shows as a photographer and, being put on guest lists as a photographer. So I'm sure he'll have a whole other gamut. And, and the whole point of this is we're going to have this going back and forth, but we're all going to try and unify here, both myself and Alan and our guests, but also anybody that's listening to this, and start looking as a future scope, because right now we are in a boom of nostalgia. And I say this unironically because I am a host of an emo night in Toledo where we play the classics, the hits.
And when do you do that?
It's typically once a month. It's usually the last Thursday of every month.
And where is that?
It's at the Ottawa Tavern.
So yeah,
nice plug there. It's
sorry.
We're still. Oh no, we're rolling, bud. This is a podcast.
That was great.
Was it for the audience at home? What just happened?
My stool just made a stool sound. And
it was the perfect thing that just happened where
it made me launch an ice cube at Ian.
No, but anytime I've ever sat in like a leather seat and or like it's in the summertime, and I kind of scroll down. Oh, you just flicked it at me. And you just take a slide down in your seat and it goes, and it just sounds like a long fart. Everybody looks at you and you're like, no. And then you spend the next 5 minutes trying to replicate your motion and it doesn't do it.
Nope.
Literally, Al's spinning his stool right now. He's not doing it.
Anyway.
So I think he farted.
We're in a small room, so if I do it wouldn't be a good thing.
Oh, no. We're sort of reminiscing about Boston and all that. That's why I want to kind of get into our next subject here. And if you could do us a solid favor here and take a step back, down memory lane and kind of explain to everybody, you know, what it was genuinely like in Boston between like 1985 and 1993.
Yeah, I'll narrow that down because that's just a long time frame.
I mean, yeah, it is a long time frame, especially, you know, with the grunge explosion and everything.
Yeah, I'm going to try and kind of...
That's like 8 podcasts.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing would be like for the next year, which is a good thing if people want to keep listening to that.
Absolutely.
But the big thing I think I'm going to kind of chime in on is that you had a lot of different people doing a lot of great things in the sense of what they were an expert at. You know, you had, whether it was a recording studio or a record label or a fanzine or a production company, promotion company, we had all this. I mean, you know, if you think of like the record companies that came out of Boston at that time in the early 80s to the 90s, you had Tang Records. I mean, they were putting out all the hardcore bands to the alternative bands. You had like Curve of the Earth. You had, you know, SSD Control's label, Exclaim.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was great growth within the music scene because there was avenues to get your stuff out. And then on top of that, you had people like John Regan and Mike Gitter that promoted shows, and Sean from Cringe. What they did was they brought in national acts from like California or overseas, and they would come in and play these, literally these clubs that were like, you know, held 800 people at the most to as small as, you know, 300 seaters. And you'd have like bands coming up from New York City constantly. It was every weekend. I literally spent every weekend at a show. It would start on a Friday and it would end on a Sunday. And I mean, Friday after school, we'd go into Boston. We'd either go record shopping and we'd end up at the Channel, which was a huge club. You'd see national acts there, and you go to a show there. And then the next day, on Saturday, you'd go to Green Street Station during the day for an all ages matinee, and then or the Rat, and then go out to Bun Ratty's that night, or go to the Channel again and see somebody big like, you know, oh hey, Social Distortion's playing. Or then you'd go and on Sundays you'd definitely be at the Rat because it's Sunday matinee shows. All the hardcore bands. You'd have Sick of It All. You'd have Agnostic Front. You'd have everybody coming up. So it was a constant, you know, and there was this big, everybody talks about Boston, New York and the rivalry, but we were very close because we all worked together.
That's sort of where I'm going to kind of, you know, pull this here is it's humbling to me to kind of sit back and realize, you know, just within the scope of the past 25 years, you know, where the music scene was then. It sounds to me that, you know, fandom, even not even looking at the musician side of things, but just as a fan, as a young music fan in like 87, 93, it just seems that there was you know, just a stronger motivation
to be involved
and to promote. And, you know, it's just crazy considering that because I from my personal scene, which would be the late 90s into the early to mid 2000s, the scene that I was brought up in and played shows in, I can remember that. You know, when I first started playing shows, I can remember when there was a local phone line where you could call in and they would give you like, you know, what's coming up at certain venues. Like,
we had it too.
And, you know, and so there's this bridge that happened within the mid 90s and the late 90s and the early 2000s. But then MySpace happened, and that was sort of like when, you know, I was at my peak age of, you know, I just graduated high school, and everybody was like, get in the van. Yeah, we're in a touring climate now.
Henry Rollins, get in the van.
For those who can't see right now, Alan's wearing a Black Flag shirt, and the second I said get in the van, he just flicked his shirt above his shoulders and was like, Black Flag. Because it's true. I mean, we still had that sort of ethos of you just get in the van, let's just go and do it. But then what we were undermining was what was happening. There was an I don't even want to say the word evolution happening, but there was a massive change that was underbellying everything.
Well, the whole music scene was changing because, you know, you had Napster, you had social media going absolutely crazy. You had, you know, MySpace, Facebook, things all evolving at that time. And I mean, you guys hopped on it. And to us, it was almost like, it it was alien like, because it was so impersonal, meaning, you know, you weren't talking to somebody directly to their face. It was all of a sudden it became like
direct messages.
Hey, look at this. I can say whatever I want. I can be whoever I want. And instead of being real up front and saying, you know, getting a good vibe from somebody, talking to them, you know, you go to a show and you meet the band.
Where I kind of want to get with that is, you know, we sort of bridged the same ethos in my age group of late 20s, early 30s. And with that bridge, we still had the same, like, well, this is what our scene before us did, so we're going to try and keep carrying that torch. But we were sort of, again, undermining the huge technological advances, and then MySpace and Facebook coming along.
Our lives would have been so much easier if that stuff existed during my time.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't know what it would have turned into.
But then let's compare and contrast, like I was getting at earlier, of how fandom was back then. Like how motivated the fans were, because everything was tangible and physical and having to be face to face. Now, I'm not saying that MySpace, I'll give an example, was the death of hardcore, metalcore, or just even emo or any form of alternative music or art platform, because I can remember a time in the mid 2000s when MySpace sort of made that huge boom, when shows were still awesome. And there was still a good sense of community, and it was sort of like the boom of MySpace. I tend to akin it to like an undiscovered Oregon Trail, just like, you know, well, we have this new platform now. We're gonna trudge it, and here we go, and we're just gonna try and slowly utilize it as we're going along here. And at first, it worked. I mean, it was like you said, it was a little more impersonal, but it was like, no, we're fine with that. Shows are still cool. Booking's a lot easier now.
Well, that definitely,
there was a lot of perks. So we're like, yeah, absolutely. But something changed, which is sort of, again, the massive platform that's motivated me to kind of like, you know, even start this podcast with you. Is something changed. And it all went to shit. What started the fire here? You know, where's the bodies? You know, you're sifting through, looking for all the evidence. What started the firestorm? And people tend to kind of go, oh, it was social media. Well, not when it started. When it first started, it was like, oh, this is kind of neat. And if we would have just kept it like controlled,
but it went way out of control. It went it went too fast, in my opinion.
Way too fast.
Yeah, I agree.
It exploded. And so, I mean, I've been in Northwest Ohio literally my entire life. And so, how things were...
I'm ending my life here.
Oh, no. But, like, so it's hard for me to picture myself in the Boston, New York scene, but I can also make, you know, similarities with what we had here in, you know, Booneytown, USA. Like you were saying, like there's the huge rivalry between New York and Boston, but you still work together. I can remember a time when Ohio and Michigan,
they still do. It's football, man.
Oh yeah. We'll have to start an old sports talk radio, and everybody can hate me on that one.
Absolutely not. I will not be part of that.
But what I'm saying is, like, as far as like the scenes go, like the Detroit hardcore scene versus, you know, what we had in Cleveland and Toledo, there was a lot of, but I can recall a time in the scene that I was brought up in of there was at least the mutual like shows, dude, promotion, dude. Yep. Let's, you know, but like you said, you know, the new implemented social media platform exploded, and it was like a virus that just got way out of control.
And there you have the Get Up Kids with Holiday, followed by Peer Police by the FUs, Boston's greatest punk rock band. Our first guest is going to be John Stocking from that actual band.
Oh, fuck.
He also was the singer of later after that a band called the Straw Dogs.
Oh boy. But you know we're gonna kind of end things out here right now. But we're gonna keep chugging these out, and though this is the DIY Syndicate podcast, and we're trying to do this DIY, this is going to be sort of in everybody else's hands as well as a listener, as far as support goes, getting the word out. But also, if you got any feedback or any ideas or comments or anything that you feel that could enhance our reach or enhance our product here, we will be more than willing to communicate. And because though you're a Bostonian, you're a wonderfully sweet guy.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would disagree with you.
No, but I mean, the benefit that we have out here is it's a really kind of comfortable setting, and we just kind of want to reach out. And so do not hesitate and do not be afraid to reach out to us on social media of any format, whether it's the Syndicate podcast page or even our own personal things on Facebook or Instagram. Just reach out and we'll do our best to get you in here, or even do a phone-in interview. This isn't just an Alan and Ian thing. This is going to be a community thing.
If it was the Alan and Ian thing, it would have been called the Alan and Ian show. And then we would have had to have a throwdown in the middle of the live room to determine who was going to go get top billing.
and that show would have tanked so fast.
If you really need, if you need a visual in regards to, think of Abbott and Costello. Ian's the tall, skinny guy. I'm the short, pudgy guy. So,
but thank you for listening to the DIY Syndicate podcast. Just keep sticking with us. We're gonna keep, this train chugging along.
We'll keep bringing you good stuff. I hope interesting things.
We're gonna keep it fresh. So, what better way to do it than to do it yourself?
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
The DIY Syndicate podcast will be broadcast Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Be sure to check the event calendar on their Facebook page for times and guests. The DIY Syndicate podcast is not responsible for anyone's hurt feelings or their panties in a bunch. So if you were offended, grab a tissue and have a good cry on us. Thanks again for listening. See you next time on the DIY Syndicate podcast.